Don't get me started.
Niliona document inaitwa master plan. Roy, hiyo ilikuwa nini?
Everybody seems to be doing their own thing, spending money, but there's no common goal, common vision that they're all working to achieve. And what the task force was meant to do is how do you then bring that together to make it easier to administer that particular sector. But of course, when the new administration came, everyone is like, those things of the past, wachana nazo, talanta, hela.
There's a certain apathy that young people really have to serikali. So then now it gets worse. It gets a bit more mad when it comes to wasanii, because what wasanii see as what they have been lobbying for doesn't quite translate at policy level.
We have 12 ministries plus the Attorney General's office, that makes it 13 ministries that touch on the creative sector.
There's content creators in Nakuru, in Eldoret who have the numbers, but they may not have the business capacity or the legal capacity to really harness on their talent, on their content, to a way that now it can even be packaged and even exported out of the country.
Hello everybody, it's been a long time we waited to do this podcast, and we are very happy that you could join us. And I'm also happy to have the two guests today. And unajua Roy, tumengoja sana.
Yes.
And also Immaculate, it's been a while, but I'm very happy because for such a time as this, we want to have a very important discussion for our sector. No, it's not a sector.
It's an industry.
It's an industry. The culture and creative industry in Kenya. And there has been a lot of movement in government, of course, with the cabinet reshuffle. And we are right in the middle of it as a different government officers try to settle wherever they were moved. So today we are going to be taking a deeper dive to look at that. And we hope that the discussion is going to help us have a better view, a better understanding, and see how we can improve the current situation. So we have Roy Gitahi from ArtLawKenya and Wabuni Sako, and we have Immaculate. And I want them to, Kwanza Ju, because we have heard you before when the ladies first, I want you to tell us, Monday to Monday, what are we going to find you doing on a normal day?
I have no normal days. I just kind of have to organize. But from Monday to Monday, you typically find me in the office. So I run ArtLawKenya. You'll also find me in the studio because I'm a singer-songwriter. You'll find me in forums like this because I like to discuss and just talk about industry and what's happening in creative industry. You'll find me with clients because I also represent clients. So it's a mixture of very many things.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I realize on the first attempt, people say what they do. But then usually there are other things that people do. I have spoken to people who climb mountains, people who go deep sea diving, people who watch stars at night. Of course, what you can say here is something else, maybe adventure, outdoor, or it's just walks in nature. But is there something else that maybe you do that helps you?
I sleep a lot. I have no care for the outside.
Okay.
I tried hiking. I think it was, somebody said, people, in Kenya, hiking, they're all single. But I don't like to hike. I tried it didn't work. So I'm a very introverted person and I'm homebody. So you find in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We shall come back now that you have mentioned about the things you do, and we hope that it's going to be very relevant to this discussion. Roy, of course, we have been seeing you very active in the creative industry in different forums. Even the other day, we were at KRA during the stakeholder forum. Maybe because we know you have been working a lot for the inclusion of artists on issues to do with financing. What's at the top of your mind right now in terms of what ArtLawKenya and Wabuni and the things that you do? What is your priority right now as the year comes to an end, as we jump into 2024 in terms of the culture and creative industry?
Okay. Top of mind right now is monetization. Okay. One of the things that I realize is that there's a lot of work that has been done in terms of building structure, policy, having relationships with the different stakeholders from government, private sector, development partners, and also the creatives themselves.
Yes.
In trying to define the creative industry. If you ask one person what the creative industry is, they will probably have a whole range of things that they're going to say. And so from a global level, you have UNESCO, WIPO, UNCTAD, and their definitions that they provide. You come down to the African Union, the 2063 vision. They have the definition of that which aligns to an international perspective. You have Jumuiya ya Mashariki, which is the East African community, which also has its definition. Then when you come to Kenya, you get a confusion, all right? Because there's a time when you had culture, heritage, and the arts as one, and then all of a sudden the arts was taken away from culture and heritage.
Yes.
And so,
are you talking about this one for this administration?
For this administration, 2063.
The Ruto's government.
Yes, the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Yes.
So you basically have a railway track that has been following a certain criteria. You know you're going to Mombasa.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, the railway track ends and then you've been told get onto the road. Now, surely, will the train now move on the road or that kind of thing, or cars move on rail? Yes. And so those are very confusing period.
You even said a time when the film had been taken away from.
There have been all sorts of definitions that have been there. In the last administration that was there, people felt that film is better off with ICT. So, but, and then in this Kenya Kwanza administration, they removed the arts, corrected the situation, but they have removed arts where everything that was creative culture was put into the same thing, and the youth affairs, arts, and sport. And of course, then culture was separated and thrown into wildlife. And then in this recent reshuffle, they've corrected it, but the story is that they want to now remove certain elements. The confusion here is when you keep doing mix and match without a proper game plan, strategy, vision, or even allowing that vision to take hold and give result and fruit, then it causes confusion for the rest of the stakeholders who are looking for guidance from government.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Immaculate.
Yeah.
What's your take? What's your take on the current state of affairs and where we have moved on? Culture, the restructuring. Do you think now it'll be more effective? Is that the way it should be? How do you see it?
For me, as somebody within the creative economy, I'm just trying to figure out, first of all, why gender was put into the equation. Because, we just hear about this reshuffle. We don't understand really what the effect is for, again, the creative, who's, the common creative. So would I know if it's going to get better or worse? I'm not sure. I'd have to see possibly like what you're saying, the vision. If you put these things together, how do you see them panning out? What is the correlation? How do you see these ministries coexisting in a way that none is forgotten?
Yes.
Gender is not forgotten, arts is not forgotten, culture is not forgotten. Yeah.
Okay. And we also have, how do you guys see the problem of continuity? The interruption.
Yes.
Toka kwa reli, enda kwa barabara, midway at Mtito. I don't know what challenge, does it bring a challenge? The other day I saw our former CS at the DSTV event for I think it was for the Telenova at KICC.
Yes.
And I'm like, of course, he had an invite way before, so
yes.
He had to show up. And he was moving full throttle with Talanta Hela and all those things. And then, sasa tuko wapi?
It's a good question, and the reason, and yes, it brings about a lot of confusion. As you said, planning does not happen. I mean, like for example, Art at Work is already now looking at 2024, 2025, what needs to be done then. So any disruption that comes into the short term, by the way, then spoils the 2024, 2025 plan. So the thing is, in the last administration, we kind of knew the way, the trajectory that was going to be done. We had a task force. We basically had a preliminary report on what the industry needed, and then all of a sudden, Talanta Hela. So what does that do to the plans that were there before? Yes, we tried to adopt. Most of it we ignored as
all those things were shelved now.
we didn't shelve, and this is the beauty about, and I'm actually very happy that we made that decision to just ignore what government was doing. All right. So in Talanta Hela, you never had ArtLawKenya involved. You never had us trying to get involved into that in that stuff, because I think for us the route had already been prescribed by the research that we did, by the task force that had been done. Though its term is not, I mean, though the report was not published, we at least knew or know what the results are.
Yeah.
So we know, if you ask what was the basis of Talanta Hela, for us, if you asked us what the basis of the Creative Economy Task Force was the report that was done into new business models of financing the creative sector. This data.
Oh, it's still about money.
Yes, there's data.
Money in the pocket.
It's money in the pocket. It's still about money in the pocket. So why now all of a sudden say that now you have Talanta Hela that is now looking at money? And I faulted Talanta Hela. I had faulted Talanta Hela because there's no game plan. All right. You look at the committee that was set up. All right. People said what they said about the people who were involved. But for me, it was because none of those people were process owners. You're talking about finance, but none of those guys was a banker. All right? You're talking about structure, but who else? Who was there in government?
There was a thought that it was a celebrity club.
It was a celebrity club. It was more like a feel good. So I can say that unfortunately I thought that the term of Ababu Namwamba was a rocking chair administration. There's a lot of activity that is happening, but there's no movement.
Here.
Yeah, there was no movement moving forward. And unfortunately that has ended, but with what? Nothing. All right. I now see Aisha Juma coming in. I think she will be a great CS. All right. And the reason why is because people have got low expectations. All right. It's the same thing. I see a similarity between her and Olen Timama. Olen Timama.
You've gone way back, eh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You see, the thing is, government, you have to look at it as a continuum. You don't look at it as present. There's a history.
Yes,
all governments have history.
Yes.
Olen Timama, when he came in to be the CS or the minister for culture, everyone thought, this was a demotion for you, and he was quite happy. And he was saying, which other ministry do you have time to explore food, dance, culture, and all those things? His outlook was fantastic.
Yeah.
Then when you put the intellects who came afterwards, by the way, the Dr. Warriors, what happened? Some of the greatest scandals happened around that particular time. All right. So I think as a CS, she can push for an agenda. The good thing is that private sector development partners already want a way forward, moving, for the sector. And of course, if government is open to those particular suggestions, then the creative sector is definitely going to thrive and succeed.
Okay. Yeah. Immaculate, tell me, from your understanding, not just the legal IP expert perspective, but because we are here discussing the outlook of Kenya's creative industry, and we have had misconceptions. But maybe for people who are watching and listening, you can break down for us briefly that structure that we should be following. And I know it may sound obvious, but we have around 7, 8, 9 subsectors and all that. But it's like people don't see. That's where you hear film being thrown to ICT, then wildlife and culture being thrown together, maybe because they want, when Wazungus come, they can have Maasai's dancing for them. But maybe you can paint for us, how do you see it?
So start with defining what culture is, what absolute heritage is, and then see how can culture be, so to speak, preserved? How can it be not monetize. I don't like to use the word monetize with culture because sometimes it gets rubs people the wrong way. But how can it be expanded? How can we preserve in a way that also benefits the people who are affected by this culture? Same thing with arts, same thing with heritage. So then once we have this understanding and then figure out within these preservations who needs to be present, who are the stakeholders present.
Yeah.
And you find we have limited our scope in terms of who is present because we look only at the creative. We don't look at government, we don't look at institutions, we don't look at education, we don't look at, or rather maybe we don't quite give enough emphasis on education and policy and the people who are in support. So then understanding those value chains. So for example, with digital creative economy, there is, within the value chain, there's production, there's people who do production, pre-development, there's marketing and distribution, there is sales, there's all these things that are involved.
Yeah.
So if we have a way to just bring all these people into the room and now streamline these processes and see, okay, so at this point at which you have the product, I come in. At the point at which the product is done and ready for sale, these people are the ones who are supposed to be contacted.
The business aspect of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I like that conveyor belt perspective. Maybe Roy, you can give us you mentioned earlier, kutoka UNESCO down. A lot of people, even in the creative industry, some of them even in leadership, don't understand that whole, the different subsectors of the creative industry. Even where we start asking ourselves, are martial arts or a sport? I've had that mentioned.
Culinary
chefs, culinary.
Yeah.
Are they part? I know in Europe some countries push it in, others they say conge. How is the structure here? Whether it's entrenched in policy or not, but generally how is that all the subsectors? The main ones maybe you can mention.
So when people talk about creative arts in Kenya, they mostly talk about film, music, and fashion. Okay, and so that is why there's special emphasis on film and music. You find PPMC, but you talk about visual arts, it also struggles because the thing is there's nobody who's looking out for visual arts. That one is thrown into the museum, and all those nondescript things are thrown around. It's because people do not understand where, if we put this investment into this particular sector, what are we getting in terms of return on that investment in terms of tax? Okay, and that's why we had that session with KRA, because the thing is, for us, Art at Work has got 3 areas that we're focused on. One, the creative industry as a job creator, the creative industry as an income generator, and the creative sector as a source of revenue for the exchequer, which is basically government.
Everybody finds value in it.
Everybody finds value in it, because if the policymakers do not see value, then they cannot create policy or legislation to support the industry. If government does not see the value, then budgets will not be put into that particular sector. So you must be able to connect all those things, as Immaculate says. You need to have that conveyor belt kind of thinking where you say, look, we need to consolidate the industry. We need to define it. All right. And these are some of the findings that we had with the Creative Economy Task Force, where the task force now, so let me give you some preliminary findings that we had. We have 12 ministries, plus the Attorney General's office, that makes it 13 ministries that touch on the creative sector.
12 plus 1.
12 plus 1 is 13. Number 2, there are 10 House committees, okay, in the National Assembly who touch on the creative sector. We have 8 Senate committees in the Senate Assembly that touch on the creative sector. In the judiciary, we have 3 tribunals that touch on the creative sector. We have 47 county governments that now touch on the creative sector, because culture then also has been devolved. The question is, with all those players, they don't even know they know one another. They don't even know they're related. They don't know how they are working together. All right. And so how then do you coordinate that? And that was the second term of reference of that particular task force. And that's why we went in that direction. How do you create a coordination mechanism for stakeholders in government, in private sector, in development partners, and the creatives themselves? Because even in development partners, the French are doing their thing, the British are doing their thing,
yes.
the whatever. Which one state department knows what all those guys are doing? Everybody seems to be doing their own thing, spending money, but there's no common goal, common vision that they're all working to achieve. And what the task force was meant to do is, how do you then bring that together to make it easier to administer that particular sector? But of course, when the new administration came, everyone is like, those things of the past, wachana nazo, talanta hela. And I'm like, really?
I actually want to know those 12 ministries that you've mentioned that are supposed to touch on the creative economy. But you've said that, and I just thought you have your concerns about we creatives and artists not being in touch with even what government is. I think one time on social media, I saw it somewhere. Somebody tweeted, I think actually back, I don't know if it was a Kenyan or a Nigerian, then I screenshot it and also shared it, and people commented a lot that saying, young people, especially and artists, please know what's happening in government. What are your concerns about wasanii kuwa out of touch na serikali? Yeah.
There's a certain apathy that young people really have to serikali. So then now it gets worse. It gets a bit more mad when it comes to wasanii, because what wasanii see as what they have been lobbying for doesn't quite translate at policy level. So for example, you see a lot of lobbying meetings where they come together and talk about what's happening in the industry, looking for subsidies from KRA.
Or give your comments on a blank tape levy.
Exactly. Or they're going to Twitter to talk about these things. But then when it comes to not actually having the knowledge on how to push these agendas or how to make them in a way that government has its own language. So translating that into government language, that's where sometimes the fault happens. And so when you find that there's all these forums happening, the belief is that something is going to come of it, and then they don't see it happen in the administration in the 5 years, 10 years. So what they feel is as if they're not cared for, they're not seen, they're not heard.
Yes. And I think I've had that concern even, people are like, even this youth, women, agpo money, they're like, hiyo kitu inakuanga ya ukweli. Like they don't even. I think many of them feel this government thing is somewhere in a planet Jupiter, and sisi we are here on planet Earth, and we can only observe from a distance. So I think it's important for young people to really be curious and find out. I will tell you, as recent as this past weekend. Because of the project we are doing recently, so I told someone, you need to register a business so that if people are to come in, then you will have a starting point of formalizing any support you may get for the project. So, and I told that person, you need to move fast. Then they asked me, is that something I can do online? Do you know how that tragic sounds? That this person does not know that they can register their business 100% online. And I wondered, wow, how many more ignorant people are there about that? And it really ilifanya tu nishangae sana. But coming back, Roy, the 12 disciples of the creative industry.
The 13 actually. Okay. So the thing is, people think that the creative economy exists in isolation, in a vacuum. That's not based on a true story. So the thing is, the ones that were obvious at the time was under Executive Order number 1 of 2023, and I think 1 of 2022. If you looked at when tourism had been placed under what is it called? When culture, heritage, and so tourism became one. When youth affairs, the arts, that became the second one. ICT, of course, and in the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, by the way, you have the creative economy and digital superhighway are one under number 5. So you've got ICT. You've got things that are trade. The Ministry of Trade and Investment, by the way. You've got MSME and cooperatives, which is where Wabuni comes in and where we're now trying to push people into. Of course, the Attorney General's office had got Kekobo at the time, but Kekobo moved, and BRS, Business Registration Services, which was there. What are the other ones? Health, for example. I keep saying that health are issues that we don't talk about, especially when it comes to creatives. We're looking at mental health. We're looking at things like sexual reproductive health. We're looking at things like alcohol, drugs, and substance abuse. That's the Ministry of Internal Security, because NACADA falls under them. We have the Office of the President, of course, because of the coordination of county governments and
Yes.
We have that. I'm trying to remember the other 3, but generally you get
I see. Lakini yenyewe people don't understand.
People really don't understand this industry.
Don't understand. I think it spreads so, and there is really great need for. Some people may say synergy. The way you're saying. We just can't, everywhere and nowhere.
Yes.
I think it is very important that Ikwe aligned. And I believe, I hope that this small beginning for this podcast and other opportunities that we're going to have, what you guys are doing at ArtWork, different experts in the industry, the efforts need to come together and be streamlined so that I'm just trying to think about just the county governments. And all that is happening in the counties. Unajua tukiwa Nairobi tunafikirianga kila kitu. Is in Nairobi. Then you just go out there. You find guys have a lot of views on YouTube with hundreds of thousands and millions with vernacular music. But what can I call it? Like very recent style of performance, isn't it? Like out in the counties. Find guys who sing in their native language with the vernacular stations. They have podcasts who call totally, and they are not trending on Twitter, but they have a lot of following. They have big audiences, and they are moving masses. So, what do you think? What do you think is would be some of the things that need to be done in light of what? See that broad, whether from the legal perspective, all those committees in the Senate, in Parliament, what do you think needs to happen with all these groups, associations? We have the support for training institutions. We have national and county government. We have the relevant ministries. We have private sector. What do you need? Some of the things that need to happen as a matter of urgency and utmost importance. Ndio pia wasanii tuache kushinda tu tukilia all the time. I think we should come up with the solutions ourselves.
We need to start with having, in my opinion, having a vision of where we want to go as a creative industry.
Okay.
What we want to do as a Kenyan creative industry before we branch out to the South African creative industry, and then identify. If at all we want to go here, what kind of phases can we break down this synergy into so that it is plausible and feasible at the same time, so that it's also not over-expanding resources or over-expanding the budget allocations that we get as an industry. So once we have some kind of roadmap, you see how we have very big, of course it's an urgent matter, climate change, and we had that 3-day conference in Nairobi where all these people came into like KCC and had conversations. We need to also bring people into one room. I don't know how plausible it is, but I think just for the fact that, again, he talked about county governments in different places. Nakuru is doing its own thing, Nairobi is doing its own thing. How can we come together and figure out how to do a thing that resonates in all counties? Because like you said, there's content creators in Nakuru, in Eldoret who have the numbers, but they may not have the business capacity, the legal capacity to really harness on their talent, on their content, to a way that now it can even be packaged and even exported out of the country. So there's all this. I believe a synergy in the form of that sitting down and finding a foundation, forming a foundation and a basis and a vision of where we want to go. This Vision 2030 that has economic pillars, social pillars. Can we have one for the creative economy? Yeah.
I thought that was launched at State House.
Don't get me started.
Mimi niliona document inaitwa master plan. Roy, hiyo ilikuwa nini?
Okay, this is
the way you have signed.
This is basically, yeah. This is the frustration that I have with government not being coordinated or not knowing what it's doing. And why do I say that? It's because a few days before the launch of that particular master plan, the committee, the Talanta Hela committee, was disbanded.
It was disbanded like 36 hours before.
Before the launch of the document that they were.
Or actually, that came in the morning.
So what are you launching? You launched the sports part of it. You didn't launch the creative part of it.
Oh.
So you need to see things when you remove all the showbiz, you realize there's a zero-sum result that was done by the last outgoing CS. I'm sorry to say that. But I like what Immaculate said, because the thing is you need one common vision. But who defines it? Who defines the vision for the creative industry? Who defines the creative industry? And if you look at the term of reference on the Creative Economy Task Force, number 3, it was to develop a tool that measures the contribution of the creative economy to the national economy. Okay, so how are we doing that? We had already reached out to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to actually find out, can we now start looking at what is the definition of the same? Like, for example, iTax, we are...
yes.
The iTax categorization, ASGA is a category number 900. All right? But do you know there are 40 other sectors that define the creative industry under iTax, but it has never been coordinated.
Oh.
All right?
So the thing is... For example?
Leather. All right? Retail of jewelry, gemstones, things that then go to the creative space, publishing, books, music, TV, and all that. Those are not counted as the creative sector, yet they are part of that. And the whole idea was to actually then create a creative economy satellite account, which basically takes all those 40 categories and then puts them into one, so that we now have a comprehensive view of how big the creative economy is. That then changes the minds of the policymakers who are like, Kume, this is the contribution of this. Then we can now make an investment and see what the result of that investment is. So then we don't have to start complaining every year in and out that these are underfunded, because the people who make the decisions with the money need to also understand the importance of that particular sector to the economy of this particular country and the revenue that it will be able to produce for the exchequer.
The problem is documenting.
Data. Actually,
money that moves.
It's data.
I know. The other day somebody said, related to what you said, something that was very profound about perhaps why the filmmakers think film, but film is big because it's measurable. It's easily measurable because of film and TV stations and all that. And they said to produce a film, you almost need everybody. You need a writer.
Yes.
You need a fashion designer. You need stylists. You need lighting. You need audio. You need mafundi wa kutengeneza set. Like all those. You need photographers.
They're the drivers of the same. But you see, that's the other thing that we've never seen. You see, film will tell you these guys. But I also think advertising agencies are also the same.
Yes. People just see the service.
Yeah, people just see the service, but they don't see the trickle effect that it has. Where you say an advertising agency has got it needs production. It actually needs personalities to do that. It needs catering. It needs location. Just like a movie, yes. It's a mini little industry. So, like in the last Kenya Revenue Authority forum that we had, we had APA that was there, where we're now talking about how then do we help the advertising agency in terms of tax refunds. All right, so that tax refund becomes investment into that particular place that will facilitate job creation. Okay, so that is a driver. All right. The other thing that we do not see is the creative sector as a driver for even artisans. When you talk about fashion design, you're now talking about tailors, seamstresses. All right. If fashion thrives, then it now starts bringing artisans up. When we're talking about interior design, you're then talking about people who do the carpets, the drapes, the lighting, the masonry work, the cabinets that are going to be done for that particular thing. There's
watu wa mkono.
Yeah, watu wa mkono. This drives that, but we've never seen the relationship between the creative sector and how it can drive the Jua Kali sector. So we now need to be able to have an opportunity to present the creative sector as a driver for job creation, and that's why you say the three things: job creation, income generation, and revenue to the exchequer. Yeah.
Okay, we are talking about the system, the ecosystem that supports the whole culture and creative industries. But there is this one part, in fact, wrongfully, I would say this one little part. IP, copyright, and you see today we are talking about the state of the creative industry. So from your very informed perspective, what are some of the wins and gains that we have had in the recent past in terms of IP, copyright, and what more needs to be done from different parties, whether Sisi Wasanii, those in the leadership, government, policy? What's the state of that currently?
Right now, in the last few years, we've seen an IP culture start to flourish in the country. It wasn't there maybe 20, 30 years ago, so it's really flourishing. You're seeing a lot of exposure as well, so artists are more exposed to understanding that, I have this thing that can be actually protected, can be monetized, can be registered. So that's happening. But then you also have the questions of how do we talk about IP in the context of the Kenyan context, because IP has been also seen as a Western concept where it's a lot of property that is mine. When it comes to the African setting, property is ours. So how do we also break down to the level of now the creative industry, creative economy, the creatives? So there's a shift that's been happening. A lot of export also Kenyan products, content, music, film that's been happening. So now you find people asking the right questions in the right room. So I have this thing, how can I protect it? You also have, we talked about Kekobo being underfunded, the government industries related to IP being underfunded. However, they've come to a point where now they're partnering with organizations that have the resources to execute this mandate. So they may not be able to do it themselves, but they're partnering with the relevant authorities. So you have Kekobo has done a lot of work with JZ this year, done a lot of meetings at mashinani level with artists, creatives, and they're not just doing it in Nairobi, they've actually centralized. And it's happening a lot more. You also have a lot of people in the legal space who are now also broadening the aspect of, lawyers follow money.
Okay, yes.
We want to be in conveyance and want to be in family, but we're realizing the industry is worth a lot of money in the further.
There are a lot of opportunities for you guys. Yes,
exactly. Yes. So now getting to that space of realizing I have to train myself in certain aspects that I wasn't comfortable with as a lawyer makes me a bit better placed to now have conversations in rooms like this, where now creative industry is being talked about, and I can give my opinion and I can give my feedback. So people and the law fraternity is taking notice of it.
Yes.
So 5 years ago, you had Jim Gashuri, Liz Lendro, the top names that you knew. Right now, we have 10, 15, 20 lawyers, and also just partnering also together. So we're not in competition. We're seeing that the industry needs our help. And so we're coming into it as united front. Yeah.
Let me ask you, kama Roy anapoza ko, the challenge of addressing copyright infringement from your perspective, is there a solution? Because very often, at least every week, 2 weeks, I get people telling me, no, this happened. Even recently, last week, a friend told me, I have this story. When we had the copyright clinics at Kenya Cultural Center, when we were doing our Kesho Africa events, it was like, hey, there is this guy I was working with on a project. Then we created this content to Kakosana. And people have two issues that have come up. But every time, the money to give you is a problem. And I don't know, I'm not asking you to solve poverty problems in the country. But do you think there is a way out? Because in one angle, I know there is the ignorance part. But then, is there a way that problem can be sorted? Ama watu watengeneze pesa hapo wakuje. Because there are a lot of artists who are, they have those problems and they're like, now what do I do? Do I call Kekobo we go twende kotini ndio huyu msee aache kutumia my IP or my copyrighted works,
How do we handle that? That's a very big question. It's everybody has a part to play. So the creative has a part to play. Government agencies within the spaces have a part to play. The legal fraternity also has a part to play, because we can't also just be looking at profits, but also seeing how to elevate the industry. But again, we are slowly catching up to a culture of I have property that needs to be protected, because you see, for the longest time we've seen property as just a car, shamba, that which I should protect. If somebody comes to my shamba, takes my car, I can take action. But when it comes to creative works, artists are still not sure about what the concept of protection is, because something the moment
they are not sure online, or they don't know.
They don't know, they're not sure. There's some confusion. Okay, so they think that once I put it online on Google, once I put it on YouTube, it's for everybody to use.
Or when you put it on Facebook owns it.
Facebook owns it, and somebody can just take it and use it on an ad for Coca-Cola, and that's just going to fly, it's going to be fine. Also, the biggest perpetrators of copyright infringement in this country are corporates. Yes. Because they also know they have the financial muscle should it come to court action, that they can string it out for the next 5-10 years till uishiwe na pesa, then you just drop the case. So you find just very recently now artists are putting their foot down, and other artists are saying, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. So Nonini with Tinder, the influencer, Yashinsky, the same thing, Wangeshi, the same thing. So the more they see people pursue and prosecute infringement, the more they get the confidence, and the more they see it's actually something that we could do.
True.
Yeah, but it will take time.
Yes, of course it's a journey.
Yeah.
I think it's a journey, but I like there is slowly people are becoming very alert to the importance of protecting their copyright so that they can monetize. Let's come back, Roy. A little shift of gears. That whole system, we're talking about the whole system. For instance, on copyright and IP, now associations.
Yep.
Associations.
So, associations in the creative sector are small cartels.
They're what?
They're small cartels.
No.
That's what they are.
How do you say small even you?
It is a man and his family and him and his homies, or a lady with her friends and her homies, who pretend to represent an industry. Many of these associations, if you delve deeper into them, have no membership. They have no contributions. They have not made any contribution, whether financially or policy-wise or anything like that. For them, they only exist because when the government opportunity comes to look for filmmakers, they exist.
They are.
Tuko. All right? And the thing is, those are the beneficiaries, not the people, not the industry. It is the people in those particular organizations. And one of the things that we realized is that trying to persuade them to move from that particular position is futile. And so the thing is, ArtLawKenya, Wabunisa Court, and the new organization, Tenami, we are not going to bother. All right? And the reason why we are not going to bother is because you need to be able to attract people on the issue of IP.
Show value, yeah.
Show value. On the issue of IP, if people do not understand that the IP is like a shamba, it's like a logbook, all right? And young people do not have access to the traditional forms of collateral that banks are asking for. Banks are asking for land, they're asking for buildings, they're asking for logbooks, they're asking for receivables, shares. That's what they're asking for. Young people have not had time to build those type of asset classes.
Yeah.
But now, with IP, and this is because of an act that was done in 2017 called the Movable Property Security Rights Act of 2017, we now can be able to use intangibles. We can now use art, we can now use music, we can now use IP as collateral for loans. We are now working with Kenya Bankers Association and the National Treasury to actually bring that to life. Okay, and immediately that people realize that their art, their music, their IP can be used as collateral for loans, then you'll see a much greater interest in people trying to protect that particular IP, because the thing is, it's their way of getting access to finance. Once we clean out the CMO issue, and people now are getting royalties and returns based on their IP, then you will see people wanting to, because money here is what's going to be the new driver for the creative space. It's the same thing with associations. One of the things that we tried to do last year was to join Wabuni Sacco, you needed to be in an association. Why? We were basically, and we're still going to disrupt the existing associations, where we say, if you're a filmmaker, join this particular association. If you're a musician, join this particular association. If you're a blogger, a vlogger, any of those categories or genres, then you need to join an association. Why is an association important? Because an association is a grouping of people who have in the same genre, with similar interests, who know what their issues are, who have solutions to those particular issues. They can discuss those particular issues and lobby for changes or policy and legislation in that particular genre.
In one voice.
In one voice.
And from a point of knowledge and information
exactly.
about what
which is what we don't have. We have a few individuals there who pretend to know things.
Pushing for their own missions.
They don't. They've got their own missions and stuff. And the thing is, associations then become very, very important. The governance of that becomes very important. That's why, for me, there was a program called Panga Sana, which was very, very, very critical to that particular process. Now, I'm hoping that continues.
What was Panga Sana? Remind us.
So Panga Sana was a program meant to give governance or equip the
association leaders, I guess.
The leaders of the associations, yes, the issues around to do with governance, what you can do around governance, accountability, transparency, basically those things that make it easier to run an association in a manner that appeals to people and also gives clout to those particular association. There were about 10 that went through that particular program and graduated. And so I'm really hoping that continues.
Can come season 2.
Yes, come season 2. And can we be able to take the learnings of the Panga Sana program and apply it widely? Because there's some associations that have never had elections in the longest time. It's the same old people who are there. And I've realized at my age right now, all right, which is 21, I realized that I'm not an innovator. I'm a facilitator.
Yes.
The ideas are with the 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, up to 30-year-olds.
You can't.
Those are the guys who have the ideas. I can't compete with that.
Yes, but right? You can.
But
I
have the networks that they do not have. I have the resources they do not have. I have the relationships that they do not have. How then can we work together to make them realize their dreams in a partnership where we facilitate?
Yes.
All right. And then they can be able to make their dreams come true.
Okay.
If you look at most of these associations, these guys are 40 plus. The leaders of that are 40 plus. How are they?
Way older.
Yeah, way older. By the way, those are guys of rock of ages, cloud for me. How do you expect that guy to figure out what a 21-year-old is thinking? They cannot. So for me, it's the whole scrapping of this association nonsense, by the way. Changing it up and then saying, guys, it's been real. you can now be mentors, but you can't be the people who are driving the agenda.
The running the day-to-day.
Running the day-to-day. So, yes, it's a battle we are ready to fight.
When we come back, I think we should be winding up. Prepare your closing remarks, but also I want you to explain why you say it's small, because there is how they are and how they should be when we come back. But as we get nearer to the closing, education system. What's the status? How do you think learning institutions, their role, mentorship? Because I think learning, especially in the creative sector, kuna ile kusoma curriculum, but there is also your mentors, like apprenticeship kind of, because even many of us working with our hands, I see it in my field, graphic design, photography, video, whenever you work with your hands, you need to be with someone. How do you think our education system, is it helping? What needs to be done better? Why is it helping the culture and creative industries? You may also have, number two, view about associations. I know your association recently was in the limelight. You guys have very nice professionals. Anyway, that aside, give us your money on that.
On education in the arts, I feel that we have a good foundation in CBC. To begin with, CBC has it's almost reintroduced the practicality of innovation in young children. So as they grow into it, I think first of all, their minds expanding to the possibilities of I can do more than just what is in the classroom. I can also use my hands. I can use my innovative talents. So that's I think a win that has happened in education. And then you look at now. So I deal mostly with higher education, so colleges, universities. So at that aspect, TVETA has come in, CDAC has come in, NITA have come in. They all have this sort of vocational skill curriculums, trying to figure out also how to optimize education within the creative industry. For the fact that this was not available to us 15 years ago, that's a step. It might not be the full entire answer to the equation, but it is a step in the right direction. So for example, now the streamlining of the fact that now all the colleges teaching creative industry, creative arts rather, have to have a certain curriculum that is developed by stakeholders within the industry. So it's not just academics who are coming in and saying this is what you should do according to the book, but people who are also within the fields who are doing that. Of course, there's work to be done. There's still more to be done. So for example, we're working with BIFA to see how to cultivate art business instead of just entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is, you can't quite teach an accountant entrepreneurship like you teach a creative.
Oh, it's okay.
Art business is different.
It's different.
It's very different.
Okay.
So you have what we consider business as the fundamentals, you need capital, you need this, but for somebody who's doing visual arts, for example, they need to figure out how representation works for a gallery. They need to figure out how to talk to a curator. They need to figure out how to engage with a portfolio, how to position themselves to keep producing art within the seasons, within the art world. Also understand art market sales, both regionally and globally.
So if I'm getting you right, then you're saying when they go to teach entrepreneurship, that template is not exactly the best for art and creative business.
It is not the best.
It is not the best. It needs to be
tailored.
Okay.
Exactly, and don't even for the subsectors. So art business and music business are very different. Film business is different because that also involves distribution and marketing. Photography, animation, game development, they're all very different subsectors within the industry that also just need to be, the curriculums have to be tailored for these particular industries. So that I believe is happening. There's a lot of programs that are happening. They are being developed, they're being given out by private sector. So you also have, for example, the Churchill program with the USIU fraternity. Okay. Yeah. So there are a lot of programs that are happening outside of schools for the freelance, independent artists, and also for the ones who are in school. So there's a push moving forward we have to maybe wait for the next 5 years to see the actual results of how that translates into the economy.
Okay. I think that's a whole lot of podcast on its own, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
I have seen as a person who I teach. People pay me to teach photography, to teach graphic design, to teach, but on a personal level. And sometimes I have been to BIFA, I've been to University of Nairobi, AGT, and a few other places. And definitely, in as much as they are trying that to bring industry players, those who are wako kwa hiyo kazi, to come and talk to those who are about to leave, those who are still in school for something. I think I want to understand much more, and perhaps we share this discussion on the podcast with people so that we see. For me, a bulb has lit when she was talking about that whole thing of entrepreneurship, because I know now, even our time hatukufundishwa business, nothing, absolutely. Tulikuwa tunafundishwa statistics, and I hate maths, and materials, geography, because we are designers, so we must understand the materials that we work with. There was no business, but now I understand they are teaching a little bit of it, but then we can delve deeper. I don't know if you had a comment about associations. Forget about your association, that one. That's a joke. But what do you think about it as we prepare to wind up in the creative industry?
Within the realm of things, associations have power that I feel is untapped. That they have so much power to move things, but they either don't understand or they are comfortable in the status quo, like I was saying, they're small cartels. All the associations I've seen within the industry for the short time I've been working in it, again, are people who are looking a bit aged. They're above 50. So when we get into these rooms, as we are the majority, most of the times in most rooms, younger people under 35.
Yes.
So even that disconnect starts happening because now it becomes a matter of respect your elders.
Yes.
You can't quite speak the way you want to speak freely. And also you find sometimes they have the experience, and we have to respect that experience. They've been there for the foundation of it. So that's the respect that has to be accorded. But at the same time also, where do you leave room for the newer views to be had?
Yes. They will be necessary for, they call it institutional memory.
Yes.
But then even with the young population we have in this country, I think the space has to be given. And I have seen it. I think I have seen it in the architects. I think even here as it could be coming, there is a lot of much younger blood
coming
na wale wamekuwa hapo kutoka enzi za Nyayo.
Their reference files. That's what I call them.
Yeah. So I also hope that one day we'll have a chance to just look at associations. But then I said I'll come back. Now I'm coming back. You see, you said they are a small vote. I didn't hear what you said after that. I just heard the word small. But she has said how important, if only artists and creatives knew how powerful associations can be.
Exactly.
So please, can you talk nicely? And small, talking about small things. How, if only artists can understand how important associations are. 75 marks.
75 marks. Yes. I will clarify. Small. It's a thinking.
Oh.
Small is a thinking. And the thing is, when people don't just get the full grasp, the full potential of something so that they can benefit, that I call small thinking. Associations have got the power to make changes. I always say, if you want to see your MCA as an individual, it's kind of difficult. All right. But when you go see your MCA as 10, 50 residents of his area, he pays attention. Now imagine you have an association of 1,000 people who want to go see an MCA. You know, it's like a riot. That's why he calls his MP.
He, she will stop what they are
He,
doing?
she will stop what it is that they're doing, call their MP, call the governor, call whoever it is that is necessary to have. Now imagine when 10,000 people complain, you will basically get a cabinet secretary appear. All right? You'll get a CS appear. Because the thing is, numbers matter to politicians.
Yeah, even for politicians.
Numbers matter to government. because you're talking about a population, a populace that is aggrieved or has an issue that needs to be sorted out. So that's what associations become, the vehicles to be able to present and to lobby what it is that you require to government or even to private sector or to whoever is being done. On the education aspect, one of the things that people need to realize, and the view that Art at Work has on education, is your very first investors into a career path are your parents. The minute you say that you've qualified to do law, architecture, engineering, na kadhalika, your parents are willing to sell a cow, a goat, land, mortgage the house.
Take a loan.
Yes, take a loan. Where's sema DJ? Uone pahali utaenda. Even a tray of eggs will not be sold. All right? And so it gives a very unfair start for subjects in the arts, especially when it comes to our parents. And so what are our parents looking out for? All right? We looked at it from an investment point of view, an acceptance point of view. And so one of the things that we looked at is certification. So Art at Work identified 160 career paths and then took them to NITA, the National Industrial Training Authority, to ask, guys, if we, what can we do with this 160 career paths? And they said, why don't we do this? Why don't we look at the competencies in this particular career path? How do we assess those competencies in an individual? How do we test for those competencies?
Access them now under NITA.
Yes, and how do we test for those competencies? Not just only under NITA, it's basically a whole education scale. And so that, how do we test for those competencies so that we can certify those particular competencies? And then the next stage will be then working with the Public Service Commission, which is the largest HR firm in Kenya, all right, and ask, into what job groups would you put these certificates under? Because it means that under each job group means that there's a salary scale. Okay. And it becomes a starting point. So you can now have conversations in the village.
You end up now mainstreaming all those jobs that parents thought
were unstreamable. So the thing is, now you have a conversation in a village where somebody is saying, my daughter is a model. She is in this job group and this is what it is that she can be able to earn. You now have started a conversation where they feel that there's value, there's return on investment for the money that I put into this particular career path. It's almost common sense, all right? But again, Creative Economy Task Force, that is basically what it is that we have done. And so if that then is mainstreamed, education becomes a wonderful thing. Then that is for out of school youth. What about in school? Those who are in school? I agree with Immaculate that the CBC is brilliant because it has got three pathways. There's social sciences and humanities, which is basically your language, geography, history, na kadhalika. You've got your STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And you basically have your arts and sports sciences as pathways that people then can be able to follow. All right. How then do you put importance into the arts? All right. There's a conversation now that we have initiated with Institute of IHRM, where we're saying, look, sports, for example, when people write on their CVs, I am a team player, I can achieve tasks within a certain set goal, or I am an independent worker, I am disciplined and all. How do you prove that? All right? And I put it to them that, guys, listen, look at the sports that they play. If you're a swimmer, then I know that you're disciplined, you're driven, it's an individual sport, and that you're disciplined to be able to continually do that thing and achieve the times that you're achieving. There is the proof that indeed you can be able to be an individual and achieve your own particular goals. When you say you're a team player and that you can work well with team members within a certain time frame, a certain field, I would look at what games do you play? Football, hockey, basketball. Then I know that you're a team player, that you will be able to achieve something within a certain goal because you must score, you must achieve that. Anybody else who tells you all those nice things, by the way, but doesn't play a sport is a liar, is a total liar. But that is now how you start getting relevance for arts, sports, and the creative sector into mainstream industry. we need to now get the industry to see us from their perspective. From government needs to see us from what are they desperately looking for.
Okay.
They're desperately looking for job creation. They're looking for tax revenue. If the government sees us from that perspective, then there's investment that's going to be put in. How are we going to look at the private sector? In the same way. If they see us as an avenue to be able to achieve their particular objectives, then voila, there will be investment in the creative sector. But as long as we cannot be able to create the linkages between the two, then we will always be in this particular state that where we are all confused, doing things but not moving, and not moving. And once we can get all the stakeholders to have a common vision, a common goal, a common thinking, then the creative industry can actually be the greatest earner of revenue in this country, the greatest creator of jobs in this country. Because I find it amazing that we talk about our creative, talented youth, and then you use the words unemployment in the same sentence. What nonsense is that? All right?
Yeah, that is the one that should be.
That's what's supposed to be driving you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, that sounds like your closing comments.
It is my closing comment.
It is. So, because time is much gone, you can give your closing comments. Na pia maoni yako about private sector, by the way. We've been talking about this whole ecosystem from the associations to the policymakers and Gava to the artists themselves. There are these other institutions that are go-betweens, like the Kekobos and the other government departments. Private sector, what role do you see them playing to Wasani as we finish?
Okay. Private sector are, first of all, constrained with the fact that it's profit making and there's numbers they have to grant, there's people they have to answer to, the stakeholders, there's shareholders, and all of that. So I think they also find it in a bit of a difficult space to figure out how to get into creative industry to the point where now even they're not too tasked to answer questions to their investors. But I believe we can figure out how to create projects together, how we can figure out how to again, align vision and align goals and see, okay, as a company, you have ROI, you have something you're looking for through the financial year. How can you include creative industry, creative professionals in this particular conversation? So, for example, I'll give an example of a project that was in the works. We were thinking about preservation of culture within immersive media. So using VR, AR media to figure out how to. It's a project about the custodians of culture and how also the role of women within culture, young women specifically, because you have, for example, a musician like Club D who plays the Urutu that's very culturally wrong, so to speak. And so we were thinking of pushing that for grants, and somebody asked, why don't you push that to a bank? Why don't you push that to somebody in private sector or a company in private sector that can fund this particular thing and just see how to make it work for them.
You have to show value to them. What's in it for them?
Exactly. Yes. So also if creative will understand how to create value for them, so it could be a value exchange. So it doesn't look like CSR all the time where we're asking, please help me. But figure out how to create coming from a point of value addition, because even when you give proposals to investors, you have to tell them what's in it for them. When Juma are getting investment, when any person is trying to get investment, they're looking for what's the value proposition. So how can we, as creative industry, also see how to do that so that we're also meeting them halfway?
Well, today, pia mmenichokora akili leo, by the way. I have also learned a lot, and there are a lot of things that need to be addressed, I believe, and especially, perhaps you have heard me mention before, why we call it Usanifu is because we just want to deal with especially those who are in positions of influence and leadership, like yourselves, and can drive positive energy and progress in the culture and creative industries in Kenya. So, ladies and gentlemen, asanteni sana. I think we I hope and pray that we have unpacked some of those important things, and that we will continue with these conversations for those who will be watching the podcast, so that we can share what we need to do to grow the industry. And thank you very much. Asanteni. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.